Good evening. I've been involved with iTaxi workers for the past couple of years in various issues. At the beginning, I didn't know anything about taxi cabs. Now I don't think of anything else but taxi cabs. There's a lot of issues, and iTaxi workers is trying to unite and fight for the rights of all drivers of taxi cabs, as opposed to all the other people in the industry who make a lot of money and don't really do anything, like the garages and the people who just own plates and don't drive. But the drivers are the people who do the work and unfortunately don't get very well paid, as you know. Now, a couple of years ago, there was reform in the taxi industry, they said. In 1998, everybody recognized a lot of problems and they were going to have reforms. So they said, well, we don't like this idea of absentee drivers, just owners who don't drive. We'll create a different kind of plate, ambassador plate, and W plates. And many of you are ambassador or W plate owners. And maybe it sounded pretty good at that time because they said, we're going to introduce benefits for you. Don't worry about the fact that you can't have another driver or can't sell. We'll have benefits of some kind. And the whole industry is going to move in that direction. Standards will be phased out. Well, as you know, that didn't happen. And it's gotten tougher and tougher for ambassador and W plate drivers. And Asafo Adai, an ambassador driver, started a human rights case about it. Now, you know, in our society, inequality is allowed to exist, and it's rampant, as you know. But you're not supposed to have inequality based on race. So it was very clever of Asafo to observe the following. When they introduced W plates and ambassador plates in 1998 and stopped giving standard plates, most of the people waiting for those, most of the people who'd be getting plates issued by the city were people of color, racialized people, people who are victims of discrimination in our society. Whereas the previous standard plate owners were largely Caucasians, white people, people who are the dominant group in our society. And there's a notion in the Human Rights Code of Ontario of what's called constructive discrimination. If they do something, they pass like a rule, no more standard plates, but there's going to be ambassadors and W's, which has a disparate impact on racialized people. Not that they intend to make a racist rule necessarily, but it has an impact that is racist in the sense that there were racialized people waiting for those standard plates and they can't get them anymore. Then you can argue that that violates the Human Rights Code. And that's the case that Asafo started and that I'm working very hard on. It's a very difficult case. We have to establish that there is that difference. And that's not so easy. We've had a couple cracks at it. And how many of you came to the hearing today? Did some of you come? No? Okay, there you did. Okay. So you saw we were dealing with that issue of how we establish that disparity. And that's still being litigated. The city is trying to stop us from getting evidence about that. They're not proposing a way of establishing the truth. They're just attacking every way that we try to establish the truth. And that's one of the problems, but even if we establish that, it's not an open and shut case. At the same time, as you know, the city's talking about this problem, sparked by the ambassador driver who had his throat slit and who had to have his ambassador cab sitting there for months while he recuperated and he had to pay all the costs and he didn't have any income. There's been now a talk of possible reform again, and they're going to be having a staff report in the fall. So there's a two-pronged attack here on this two-tier system. One is the legal one in the Human Rights Commission, and the other is the political one in City Hall. And I'll tell you this, I can't guarantee anything about the Human Rights Tribunal case except that I'm going to try my very best to win that case. But it's not guaranteed. But I'll tell you what is guaranteed in my view. If you people really organize, you have the power as taxi drivers to force the city to create one plate. There's no question about it. The law is not very clear in this society and not very just in general. But people who really organize can fight for their rights. And taxi drivers have an incredible amount of power. You could shut down the city. And in the fall, when they start talking about making it fairer for Ambassador and W plate owners, you might start threatening to shut down the city and really force them to do something quickly. That's my advice to you. Meanwhile, I'm going to try as hard as I can on the legal front as well. Thanks a lot.